On Christmas Eve, Hawa followed a stranger into the one place in Kano everyone avoids after dark. The alley stank of rotting vegetables and waste. Hawa's bare feet splashed through puddles she refused to think about as she tracked Ibrahim deeper into the Gwale slums. She'd been following him for 20 minutes, ever since she watched him buy suya at the stand and head toward the compound where girls disappeared. People whispered about this place, about men who took street girls and they were never seen again. But Hawa was out of options. 3 days without food made you do stupid things. Ibrahim stopped at a battered blue door, pulled out a key and glanced over his shoulder directly at her. Their eyes met. Hawa's breath caught in her throat. He'd known she was following him the entire time. If you want to see how this impossible situation unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now, because the truth about that compound, that man, and the little girl inside will flip everything you think you know. And I promise you, someone doesn't make it out of this story the same person they were. Let's go. Ibrahim didn't run, didn't shout. He simply pushed the door open wider and said, "If you're going to follow me, you might as well come inside. It's safer than standing out here." Hawa's legs locked. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her stomach twisted with 3 days of hunger, and her feet ached from sleeping on concrete behind Sabangari Market. She took 1 step forward, then another. Ibrahim's face remained calm as she slipped past him into the room. The space was tiny. A single mat on the floor, a kerosene lamp flickering in the corner, a small pot on a dying stove. Then Hawa saw her. A little girl sat hunched against the wall, clutching a worn teddy bear. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. A fatting bruise marked her left cheek, and her eyes held the kind of fear that came from knowing monsters were real. Hawa's blood turned to ice. "What are you doing to her?" "That's my sister." Ibrahim closed the door and locked it. The click of the bolt made Hawa's heart slam against her ribs. "Her name is Zainab." "I don't believe you." Hawa positioned herself between the girl and Ibrahim, her fists clenched despite knowing she was too weak to fight. "Men like you always have an explanation." Ibrahim's jaw tightened. "Our parents died 2 years ago, vehicle accident on Zaria Road. Our uncle Alhaji Shehu got custody. He moved to the kerosene stove, his movements slow and deliberate. He started beating her 6 months ago. Last month he told us he was giving Zainab to his business associate, a man named Alhaji Suleiman, 47 years old, as a wife." The words hung in the air like poison. "So you kidnapped her?" Hawa's voice cracked. "I saved her." Ibrahim's eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw the desperation there. "We've been hiding for 3 weeks. I work night security at a Lebanese factory, 7 to 5. Every kobo I make goes to keeping us alive and finding a way to get her somewhere safe. But there is nowhere safe, not for people like us." Hawa studied his face, searching for lies. She'd learned to recognize predators. Uncle Musa had taught her that much before throwing her out for refusing to marry his friend. But Ibrahim's eyes held no deception, only exhaustion and fear. "You could be lying," she whispered. "I could be." Ibrahim pulled out a small pot and began heating water. "And you're free to go get police. I can't stop you. But if you do, Zainab goes back to Shehu, and in 2 weeks she'll be married off to a man old enough to be her grandfather." The little girl suddenly spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please don't take me back to Uncle, please." The raw terror in those words shattered something in Hawa's chest. She knew that fear, had lived with it for months as Uncle Musa threatened and bargained and finally threw her into the streets when she refused to become property. "I'm not taking you anywhere," Hawa said softly, kneeling beside Zainab. The girl flinched but didn't pull away. "What happened to your face?" "Uncle Shehu hit me when I cried." Zainab's fingers tightened around the teddy bear. "He said I should be grateful someone wants to marry me." Hawa's vision blurred with rage. She stood and faced Ibrahim. "You're telling the truth." "Yes." "And you have no plan except hiding in this room and hoping no one finds you." Ibrahim's shoulders sagged. "Yes." That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Hawa sat down on the mat, her legs finally giving out. But I believe you. Relief flickered across Ibrahim's face. Why? Because I know what it's like to run from men who think they own you. Hawa pulled her knees to her chest. My uncle threw me out 3 days ago. I refused to marry Alhaji Tanko, his business partner, 55 years old, 3 wives already. Uncle Musa said I was ungrateful and selfish and... Wait, Ibrahim's face went pale. Alhaji Tanko. You know him. He's friends with my uncle Shehu. Ibrahim sank onto the floor, his voice hollow. They do business together, import-export. They share meals at each other's houses. The room fell silent except for the hiss of the kerosene lamp. Hawa's mind raced through the implications. 2 girls running from 2 men who were friends, who had connections, who controlled their worlds. We're not just running from our uncles, Hawa said slowly. We're running from the same network. And if they find us, Ibrahim didn't finish the sentence. A knock at the door made them both jump. Zainab whimpered and pressed herself against the wall. Ibrahim, an elderly woman's voice filtered through the wood. Open the door, we need to talk. Ibrahim hesitated, then unlocked the door. An old woman stood in the threshold, wrapped in a faded wrapper and headscarf. Her name was Malama Kand, and she lived in the room next door. Hawa had noticed her earlier, sitting outside and watching everything with sharp, calculating eyes. A man came by this afternoon, Malama Kand said without preamble, asking questions about new people in the compound, asking specifically about children. Ibrahim's face drained of color. What did you tell him? Nothing, but Mama Rashida in room 7, she talks too much. And Malam Yusuf saw you bring this girl, she nodded at Hawa, inside an hour ago. People notice things, people talk. How long do we have? Ibrahim's voice was barely steady. 2 days, maybe 3 if you're lucky. Malama Khan's gaze moved between them. You need a plan better than hiding in this room. We can't go to the police, Hawa said. Uncle Musa has connections there. And shelters keep records, Ibrahim added. Shehu has people everywhere, social workers, NGOs, even some judges. Malama Khan studied them both for a long moment. Then you're going to need help from someone they can't touch, someone who knows how to fight men like them. Do you know someone like that? Hope crept into Ibrahim's voice. The old woman's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. Maybe, but first, I need to know if you're worth saving. She left without another word, closing the door behind her. Hawa turned to Ibrahim. What did she mean by that? I don't know. Ibrahim rubbed his face with both hands, but I don't think we have a choice except to find out. Morning came too quickly. Ibrahim left for his shift and Hawa stayed with Zainab, the little girl curled up beside her on the mat. When Ibrahim returned at dawn, his face was haggard with exhaustion. I've been thinking, Hawa said as he collapsed onto the floor. Let me help. Let me watch Zainab while you work. You need sleep and she needs someone here who's awake. Ibrahim's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Why would you do that? Because I have nowhere else to go, and because... Hawa glanced at Zainab, who was finally sleeping peacefully. Because I know what it's like to be her, to be property instead of a person. You could rob me, Ibrahim said bluntly. Take whatever I have and disappear. Hawa gestured at the tiny room. Look around, what exactly would I steal? Your dented pot, that mat. I'm desperate, not stupid. You could turn us in, collect a reward from Shehu. If I wanted to do that, I would have done it last night. Hawa met his gaze steadily. Look, we're both running from the same kind of men. We're both alone. Maybe we're stronger if we stop being alone. Ibrahim studied her for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Food and a place to sleep, that's all I can offer. That's more than I had yesterday. Over the next day, they fell into an uneasy routine. Ibrahim slept while Hawa watched Zainab, coaxing the girl to eat small amounts of rice and beans. In the evening, as Ibrahim prepared for work, They talked in quiet voices while Zainab dozed. "Why did your uncle want you to marry Alhaji Tanko so badly?" Ibrahim asked, stirring a pot of watery stew. "Debt." Hawa's voice was bitter. "Uncle Musa owes money to half of Kano. He thought marrying me off would clear some of it. Alhaji Tanko offered to forgive 50,000 naira if I became his fourth wife." 50,000 naira for your whole life. That's what I'm worth to him, a debt payment. Hawa swallowed the lump in her throat. "What about you? Why did Shehu want to give Zainab away?" "Business connections." Ibrahim's knuckles whitened around the wooden spoon. Alhaji Suleiman wanted a young wife. Shehu wanted Suleiman's connections in Abuja, so he decided to trade his niece like she was merchandise. They fell silent, the weight of their situations pressing down on them. "We're going to get caught," Hawa said finally. "You know that, right? 2 days, maybe 3, then they find us." "I know." "And then what?" Ibrahim's hands stilled. "Then I fight, and I keep fighting until they kill me or take Zainab, but I won't give her to them willingly." Something in Hawa's chest tightened at the quiet determination in his voice. This man, who had nothing, who lived in a room barely big enough to lie down in, who worked through the night just to keep his sister alive, he was willing to die for the principle that a child shouldn't be sold. "I'll fight with you," she heard herself say. Ibrahim's eyes met hers, surprised. "Why?" "Because someone has to, and because—" Hawa paused, searching for words. "Because maybe if I help save her, it means I wasn't completely helpless when my uncle threw me away. Maybe it means I'm worth more than 50,000 naira." For the first time since they'd met, Ibrahim smiled. It was small and sad but genuine. "You're worth more than all the money in Kano." Hawa's cheeks warmed and she looked away quickly. "That's a low bar." "It's a start." That evening, as Ibrahim prepared to leave for work, Malama Kand appeared at the door again. "I've been watching you," she said, her sharp eyes moving between them, trying to decide something. "Decide what?" Ibrahim asked. "If you're worth the risk I'm about to take." Malama Kand stepped inside and closed the door. "Come to my room, both of you. Bring the girl." They exchanged uncertain glances but followed her next door. When Malama Kand opened her door, Hawa gasped. The room was nothing like Ibrahim's. A proper bed stood against one wall. A working television sat on a small table. The floor was tiled, not concrete. Nice curtains covered the window. "You're not poor," Ibrahim said slowly. "No." Malama Khan sat on her bed and folded her hands. "I own this compound, and 2 others in Kano. I've been living here for 5 years, pretending to be a widow struggling to survive, watching people, looking for something." "Looking for what?" Hawa asked. "People who value character over money, who do the right thing even when it costs them everything." Malama Khan's voice roughened. "My son died 5 years ago. His name was Yusuf. He helped a girl escape a forced marriage. The girl's family killed him for it. They said he dishonored them." The room fell silent. "I'm sorry," Ibrahim whispered. "I spent years angry, bitter, convinced everyone was selfish and cruel." Malama Khan's eyes glistened. "Then I decided to test that belief. I moved here, disguised myself as poor, and watched. I wanted to see if anyone would help others when there was no reward, no recognition, just the cost of doing right." And Hawa's voice was barely audible. "I've seen dozens of people pass through this compound. Most ignore suffering unless it benefits them." Malama Khan looked directly at Ibrahim. "But you give food to beggars when you barely have enough for yourself. You took in this girl," she nodded at Hawa, "when you had every reason not to trust her. You risked everything for your sister." Ibrahim shifted uncomfortably. "I'm just trying to survive." "No, you're trying to survive with honor. There's a difference." Malama Khan stood and walked to a small cabinet. She pulled out papers and documents. "My late husband was Magistrate Abdullahi Khan. I still have connections, lawyers, judges who owe me favors. I can help you fight for Zainab legally. Custody case. police protection, everything you need. Hope flared in Ibrahim's eyes, then died. I don't have money for lawyers. I do, but legal battles cost at least 300,000 naira, maybe more. Malama Khan turned to Hawa. And that's why I need to know if you're like him, if you'll do the right thing even when running away would be easier. Hawa's stomach tightened. What do you mean? Malama Khan pulled out a thick envelope. There's 200,000 naira in here. I need you to take it to my daughter Rashida in Nasarawa. She has the lawyer's information and documents we need. Bring them back. Why me? Hawa asked. Why not Ibrahim? Because he's already proven who he is. Malama Khan's gaze was penetrating. I need to know who you are, whether you'll take this money and disappear, or whether you'll come back and fight for people you've known for 2 days. The weight of the envelope in Hawa's hands felt like a test she wasn't sure she wanted to pass. And if I run, she asked quietly. Then a little girl goes back to her uncle and gets sold to the highest bidder. Malama Khan's voice was steel. And I'll know I was right about people, that when it matters most, we're all just trying to save ourselves. Hawa looked at Ibrahim. His face was tight with worry but also something else. Trust. He believed she would come back. How do I find your daughter? Hawa asked. Malama Khan smiled. I'll write down the address. The Okada ride across town gave Hawa too much time to think. The money pressed against her side, wrapped in her old cloth and tucked into her wrapper. 200,000 naira, more money than she'd ever held in her life. The engine sputtered and died halfway there. The rider kicked at it uselessly, then demanded extra payment to continue. Hawa had nothing to give him. She climbed off and started walking, the envelope burning against her skin. She passed through Sabangari market where she'd sold roasted corn just days ago. Past the mosque where she'd tried to sleep one night before men chased her away. Past the turning to Uncle Musa's house, where her clothes and few belongings still sat in the room he'd locked when he threw her out. Then she saw it, the motor park. Buses lined up for departure. Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. A tout called out to passengers, his voice carrying over the crowd. Lagos, Lagos day move now, who day go Lagos? Hawa's feet stopped moving. Lagos, she could disappear there. 200,000 naira would get her a small room, maybe start a small tailoring business. She could build a life where Uncle Musa would never find her, where Alhaji Tanko couldn't touch her. Sister, the tout spotted her. Where you day go, Lagos bus full day ready, last seat remain. Her hand moved to the money in her wrapper. All she had to do was buy a ticket and walk away. Ibrahim would understand. He'd known it was a risk sending her. And Malama Khan had said it herself. Most people were just trying to save themselves. But Zainab's face floated into her mind. Those terrified eyes. That small voice saying, please don't take me back to Uncle. Hawa thought about what would happen if she got on that bus. Ibrahim would wait for her to return. He'd believe she was coming back right until the moment police showed up to arrest him. Zainab would be dragged back to Alhaji Shehu. In 2 weeks, maybe 3, she'd be given to a man who would hurt her in ways an 8-year-old shouldn't even know existed. And Hawa would be in Lagos, safe, free, knowing she traded a child's life for her own comfort. Sister, you day go or not? The tout was impatient. Hawa's fingers curled around the money. Then slowly, deliberately, she pulled her hand away. I'm not going anywhere, she said. The tout shrugged and turned to other passengers. Hawa walked away from the motor park, her legs trembling but her steps steady. She didn't know if this made her brave or stupid. She just knew she couldn't live with herself if she got on that bus. Rashida's house was modest but well-maintained, tucked into a quiet street in Nasarawa. Hawa knocked, and a woman in her 40s answered. She had Malama Khan's sharp eyes but a gentler face. You must be Hawa. Rashida ushered her inside quickly. Mama called, said you'd be coming. Let me see the money. Hawa handed over the envelope. Rashida counted it methodically, nodded, then set it aside. My mother's testing you, Rashida said softly. You know that, right? I figured. You could have run with this money. I know. Why didn't you? Halwa thought about Ibrahim working through the night to save his sister, about Zainab clinging to a teddy bear because it was the only safe thing in her world, about Malama Khan's son, who died trying to help someone. Because some things are worth more than money, Halwa said finally, and I'm tired of being the person who runs away. Rashida's eyes filled with tears. Mama was right about you. Before Halwa could respond, Rashida's phone rang. She answered it and her face went white. Mama, slow down. What? Rashida's hand trembled. Oh God, okay, I'm coming. She hung up and turned to Halwa with panicked eyes. Alhaji Shehu found the compound. He's there right now, with police. They've arrested Ibrahim. The floor seemed to tilt under Halwa's feet. What? There's more. Rashida grabbed her keys. Someone told your uncle you're involved. He's there too. He's waiting for you. Halwa's mind raced. If she went back, Uncle Musa would take her straight to Alhaji Tanko. The marriage would happen within days. She'd lose everything. Rashida seemed to read her thoughts. Mama said to tell you this. The money is yours if you want it. I'll help you get to Lagos. You can disappear, start over. But if you go back, she trailed off, unable to finish. If I go back, I lose everything, Halwa whispered. Yes. But if I don't go back, there's no one to testify that Ibrahim was protecting Zainab. No one to say he didn't kidnap her. Yes. Halwa closed her eyes, saw the Lagos bus pulling away from the motor park, saw herself in a new city with a new life. Then she saw Zainab's face as police dragged her back to Alhaji Shehu. She opened her eyes. Take me back to the compound. Rashida stared at her. Are you sure? No, Halwa's voice shook but held firm. But I'm going anyway. The compound was chaos when they arrived. 2 police vehicles blocked the entrance. Neighbors crowded the courtyard, watching the drama unfold. And in the center of it all, Ibrahim knelt on the ground in handcuffs while Alhaji Shehu stood over him like a victorious hunter. Zainab was screaming, held back by a police officer while she tried to reach her brother. The sound of her terror cut through Halwa like a knife. Then she saw him. Uncle Musa stood near Malama Khan's door, his face twisted with rage and triumph. When he spotted Halwa, his eyes lit with vicious satisfaction. There she is, he started toward her. That ungrateful thief, you've disgraced me for the last time. Halwa's legs wanted to run. Every survival instinct screamed at her to turn around and flee. But she thought of Ibrahim's words from that first night. I won't give her to them willingly. So Halwa stepped forward instead of back. I have evidence. Her voice cracked but carried across the courtyard. I have proof of what's really happening here. Everyone stopped. Uncle Musa froze mid-step. Even Alhaji Shehu turned to look at her. Halwa pulled out the envelope Rashida had given her, not the money but documents, medical reports, photographs, witness statements. This is a medical report from Dr. Aminu at Murtala Mohammed Hospital. It documents injuries on Zainab consistent with physical abuse. There are photographs of bruises, burn marks, evidence of lies. Alhaji Shehu's voice boomed. That girl is clumsy, she falls. These documents are forgeries. Then explain this. Malama Khan emerged from her room, holding her phone high. I've been recording conversations in this compound for months. I have you on tape admitting you plan to give an 8-year-old child to Alhaji Suleiman as a wife. I have you discussing the bride price. I have you threatening your nephew when he objected. The color drained from Alhaji Shehu's face. And you, Malama Khan turned to Uncle Musa. I have you on tape threatening this girl, admitting you threw her out for refusing to marry a man 4 times her age, admitting you plan to use her as payment for your debts. Uncle Musa's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. A sleek car pulled up, and a man in an expensive agbada stepped out. He carried a briefcase and had the confident air of someone used to winning arguments. "My name is Barrister Lowell," he announced. "I represent Malama Kand and her interests. I've filed an emergency custody petition for Zainab bint Abdullahi, citing evidence of abuse and attempted human trafficking. I have court orders here," he pulled out papers, "that prevent this child from being removed from this compound until a judge reviews the case." The police officers looked uncertainly at each other. One pulled out his phone and made a call. "This is ridiculous," Alhaji Shehu's voice rose. "I know every judge in Kano. You think papers will stop me? I'll have this case dismissed by tomorrow." "Really?" Malama Khan's voice was cold as death. "Even after this recording goes to the State Commissioner of Police, who happens to be my late husband's best friend. Shall we see who has more power, Alhaji?" For the first time, doubt flickered across Alhaji Shehu's face. But then Uncle Musa grabbed Hawa's arm with bruising force. "Enough of this. This girl is coming with me. She has no family, no protection, no rights. She's mine too." "Take your hands off her." Ibrahim's voice was quiet but dangerous. Everyone turned. Ibrahim stood up despite the handcuffs, his eyes fixed on Uncle Musa with barely controlled rage. "Touch her again, and I'll forget these police are watching." "Who are you to tell me what to do?" Uncle Musa sneered. "You're nobody, a security guard who kidnapped a child. You'll be in prison by nightfall." "He didn't kidnap anyone." Zainab's small voice cut through the tension. The little girl pulled free from the officer and ran to Ibrahim, wrapping her arms around his legs. "He saved me. Uncle Shehu hit me. He burned my hand with his cigarette when I cried. He told me I had to marry Uncle Suleiman or he'd kill Auntie Ibrahim, so we ran away together." The courtyard fell silent. Even the neighbors stopped murmuring. One of the police officers cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Sir," he said to his superior, "maybe we should wait for the court order to be reviewed." The senior officer nodded slowly, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. He gestured for another officer to remove Ibrahim's handcuffs. "Nobody leaves until we sort this out." "This isn't over," Alhaji Shehu said, his voice low and threatening. "You think you've won. I have lawyers, connections, money. I'll bury all of you in court. That boy will never work in Kano again. That girl," he pointed at Hawa, "will beg me to take her to Alhaji Tanko when I'm done destroying her uncle's business. And you, old woman," his eyes fixed on Malama Kand, "you've made a very powerful enemy today." "Then we'll fight." Malama Kand didn't flinch. "And we'll see who's left standing when the dust settles." Alhaji Shehu turned and stalked toward his car. Uncle Musa hesitated, looking between Hawa and the crowd. Finally, he spat at her feet. "You're dead to me," he hissed. "You have no family, no home, no protection, you're nothing." Hawa's voice was steady when she answered. "Good. I never wanted to be part of a family that sells children." Uncle Musa left, and slowly, the crowd dispersed. The police stayed, waiting for official word from their superiors, but the immediate danger had passed. Ibrahim pulled Hawa aside, his eyes searching her face. "You came back. Did you think I wouldn't?" "I hoped you would, but I would have understood if you'd run." His hand found hers, warm and solid. "Thank you for everything." Hawa's throat tightened. "Don't thank me yet. He was right, this isn't over. Men like that don't give up." "I know." Ibrahim's thumb traced circles on her palm, sending unexpected warmth through her chest. "But at least now we're not fighting alone." Malama Kand approached them, Zainab still clinging to Ibrahim's side. "The court hearing is in 3 days. Until then you all stay here, together, where I can watch over you." "Why are you doing all this?" Hawa asked. "Helping us." The old woman's eyes were distant. "Because my son died trying to save someone and I never got to tell him I was proud. Because watching you two fight for each other reminded me that not everyone is selfish. And because," her voice cracked, "because maybe if I help save you, it means my son's death wasn't meaningless." Ibrahim bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you, Malama, we won't forget this." "Don't thank me yet," she said, echoing Hawa's words. "The real battle is just beginning." 2 months crawled by like years. The court case dragged on with delays, postponements, and legal maneuvering that drained Malama Khan's resources and everyone's patience. Alhaji Shehu hired 3 lawyers and filed countersuits. Uncle Musa spread rumors that destroyed what little reputation Hawa had left in Sabangari market. But slowly, impossibly, they were winning. Hawa sat in Malama Khan's courtyard on a cool evening, teaching Zainab how to braid hair. The little girl had started speaking more, laughing occasionally, though nightmares still woke her screaming some nights. Like this, Zainab held up a section of thread they were using to practice. "Perfect," Hawa smiled, "you're a natural." Ibrahim emerged from his room, freshly showered after his shift. He'd gotten a better job through one of Malama Khan's connections, still security work, but at a proper company with better pay and benefits. He sat beside Hawa, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Court hearing tomorrow," he said quietly. "I know. Barrister Lowell thinks we'll get temporary custody, maybe even permanent, if the judge agrees Shehu is unfit. And if he doesn't—" Ibrahim's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. It had become natural over the past weeks, these small touches that spoke louder than words. "Then we fight harder." Hawa leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. Somewhere along the way, between the terror and uncertainty, something had shifted between them. She noticed the way his eyes softened when he looked at her, the way he always made sure she ate before he did, the way he listened to her dreams about opening a tailoring shop someday and made them sound possible instead of foolish. "What happens after?" she asked. "After the case is done? What do you want to happen?" Hawa closed her eyes, imagining. "I want Zainab to go to school. I want her to grow up knowing she's worth more than someone's property. I want—" She paused, unsure if she should say it. "What?" "I want to stop running. I want to build something, a life, a real one." Ibrahim's voice was soft. "With me." Hawa's heart hammered. "If you'll have me." He pulled back just enough to look at her, his eyes searching hers. "Hawa, you saved my sister. You gave up your freedom when you could have run. You're the bravest person I've ever met. If you'll have me, I'll spend every day making sure you never regret staying." Before she could respond, Zainab groaned. "Are you going to kiss or keep talking? Because this is boring." They both laughed, the tension breaking. But Ibrahim's eyes held a promise that made Hawa's stomach flutter with something that felt dangerously like hope. The court hearing the next day was tense. Alhaji Shehu's lawyers presented arguments about family rights and cultural traditions. They painted Ibrahim as a criminal and Hawa as a bad influence. They questioned Malama Khan's motives. But Barrister Lowell presented the medical evidence, the recordings, the witness statements. He called Dr. Aminu to testify about Zainab's injuries. He brought neighbors who'd heard Shehu beating the child. He played the recording of Shehu discussing the bride price with Alhaji Suleiman. When Zainab took the stand, small and terrified but determined, and told the judge in her own words what her uncle had done, several people in the courtroom cried. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s. She looked at Zainab, then at Alhaji Shehu, then at the stack of evidence. "I'm granting temporary custody to Mrs. Khan," she said finally, "pending a full investigation into allegations of child abuse and attempted human trafficking. Mr. Shehu, you are prohibited from contacting this child or her brother. Any violation will result in immediate arrest." Alhaji Shehu stood, his face purple with rage. "This is not over. I will appeal. I will. One more word and you'll be held in contempt." The judge's voice could have cut glass. "This court is adjourned." Outside the courthouse, Ibrahim pulled Hawa into a fierce embrace. "We did it." "Temporary custody," Hawa reminded him. "The investigation could take months." But she's safe. For now, she's safe. That evening they gathered in Malama Khan's compound. Hawa, Ibrahim, Zainab, Rashida, and the old woman herself. It wasn't a celebration. The fight wasn't over. Alhaji Shehu had already filed an appeal, and Uncle Musa was spreading increasingly vicious rumors about Hawa. But for tonight they had a victory, small but real. "I've been thinking," Malama Khan said as they shared a simple meal of rice and stew. "This compound has 3 empty rooms. Hawa, you have tailoring skills. Rashida could teach you more. We could start a small business. Train other girls who need a way to survive." Hawa's breath caught. "You do that?" "Why not? We've already declared war on powerful men. Might as well give them something real to worry about." Rashida laughed. "Mama's always wanted to fund a women's cooperative. She just needed to find the right people to run it." "What about me?" Ibrahim asked. "What would I do?" "You're good at protecting people." Malama Khan's eyes gleamed. "I think we'll need security, lots of it." Over the next weeks, the idea took shape. They cleaned out the empty rooms, bought sewing machines with money Malama Khan provided. Word spread quietly through Sabangari Market. There was a place for women who needed skills, safety, or simply somewhere to exist without being owned. The first girl showed up 3 weeks after they opened, then another, then 5 more, each with her own story of running, hiding, surviving. Hawa taught them to sew. Ibrahim installed better locks on doors and taught them basic self-defense. Zainab, slowly healing, helped in small ways, fetching water, sweeping floors, making the other girls laugh with her innocent observations. It wasn't perfect. Money was tight. Alhaji Shehu's lawyers filed motion after motion. Uncle Musa tried to sabotage their supplier connections. There were nights Hawa lay awake worrying about everything that could still go wrong. But there were also moments like this. Sitting on the compound steps with Ibrahim after everyone else had gone to sleep, his arm around her shoulders, her head on his chest, the comfortable silence between them that needed no words. "I never thanked you properly," Ibrahim said into the darkness. "For what?" "For choosing to come back that day. You could be in Lagos right now, safe, free." Hawa looked up at him. "I am free. Maybe for the first time in my life I'm actually free because I chose this, I chose you, I chose Zainab, I chose to fight instead of run." Ibrahim's hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "I love you." The words hung in the air between them, simple and terrifying and true. "I love you too," Hawa whispered. When he kissed her, it tasted like hope and promises and all the tomorrows they were fighting to build. 6 months after that Christmas Eve, Hawa stood in the compound courtyard and watched the girls practice their stitching. Zainab sat among them, laughing at something one of the older girls said. The sound still made Hawa's chest tight with gratitude. The final custody hearing was next week. Barrister Lowell was confident but cautious. Alhaji Shehu had money and connections, but they had evidence and time on their side. The judge would see that Zainab was thriving, healing, becoming the child she should have been. "You're thinking too hard." Ibrahim appeared beside her, 2 cups of tea in his hands. He gave her one, their fingers brushing in the exchange. "Just reflecting on everything that's happened." "Any regrets?" Hawa thought about the girl she'd been 6 months ago, desperate, hungry, sleeping behind market stalls. She thought about following a stranger into a dangerous alley because she was too starving to care about safety. She thought about holding 200,000 naira and standing at that motor park, freedom just a ticket away. "None," she said finally, "not a single one." Ibrahim's smile was warm as sunrise. "Good, because I have something to ask you." "What?" He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a simple silver ring, nothing fancy, but the way he looked at her made it priceless. "I know we haven't known each other long. I know we're still fighting battles and building something from nothing, but I also know that I want to build it with you, all of it, Forever. He took her hand. Hawa, will you marry me? Her vision blurred with tears. We're still in court. We're still fighting Alhaji Shehu. We have 13 girls depending on us and barely enough money to keep the sewing machines running. I know. Your proposal should be romantic, not in a compound courtyard with laundry hanging overhead. I know. And we should probably wait until life is more stable before we. Hawa, Ibrahim's voice was gentle. Do you love me? Yes. Do you want to spend your life with me? Yes. Then nothing else matters. He slipped the ring onto her finger. We'll figure out the rest together. She kissed him, and somewhere in the courtyard the girls started clapping and cheering. Zainab's voice rose above them all. Finally, I've been waiting forever. They broke apart laughing, and Hawa realized something. This was what freedom felt like. Not running away from danger, but choosing to stay and fight for something worth protecting. Not being alone, but building a family from broken pieces and making them whole. That Christmas Eve, she'd followed a stranger into darkness looking for scraps of food. She'd found so much more. She'd found purpose. She'd found family. She'd found love. And she'd found herself. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button for more inspiring African stories about courage, love, and chosen family. Drop a comment. Would you have gone back to that compound or taken the money to Lagos? Be honest with me. And share this with someone who needs to hear that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stay and fight. See you in the next story.